Hi, it's Lyle from Made by Marley. Welcome back to our channel. Today I'm going to be making over a vintage lampshade and stand in an arty way. We're going to be doing the Starry Night. Okay, so this is the lampshade. It's a vintage lampshade. It's got the fabric inside. It's got no trim or fancy bits. See these parts here? I'm just keeping those on the shade when I paint it. And this is the wooden base. It's just a turned wooden vintage standard lamp base. Just is what it is. Now, what are we going to do first? You're going to need something to go on. So I've printed out the Starry Night just so that I can kind of work from these images. I've got two here, one in high def and one just so that I've got something to go on. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to cover it all with the shade and the base with a mid blue tone. And this is Annie Sloane's chalk paint, and in this was a bosom blue and some Giverny. I'm going to come back in with other blues tomorrow once this is completely dry, and I'm going to give it 2 coats before we do any blending and let it dry overnight before we move on. So this is all I'm going to do. So we're doing the Starry Night. Vincent Van Gogh was a post-impressionist, and I always used to think that Vincent Van Gogh his style was sort of pointillism, but pointillism's more stabby kind of brush strokes, and his were more kind of long flicks. So it'll be quite interesting to see how if we can pull this off and see how we go. He painted Starry Night as the sun was coming up from his asylum cell. There's a little happy little story for you. They didn't. He kind of used artistic license on the village. There was no village there. Right. Anyway, I'm going to get on. You don't need to see me do this. Paint this whole thing 2 coats of the blue and the lamp base 2 coats of blue. Okay. Okay, so it's dry. The shade is dried overnight, and so is the lamp base, which is just sitting beside it. I didn't do anything special, as you could saw when I put my paint on. I just put my chalk. This gives us a base to paint on, like a canvas, basically. So let me just run through the colours today. I've got Furrow, which is a sort of chartreusey limey green. I've got Hornflower, which is a brown. I've got Tilton, which is a sort of veering towards mustardy yellow, not quite a bright yellow. I've got Frida Blue, which is a bright electric kind of blue. Giverny, a mid-tone blue. Bousson Blue, which is dark sort of petrol blue. And I've got a white. That is my palette today. Now, I think what I've done is I've put pictures of the Starry Night behind me, and I've also got one with isolated images so that I can kind of work from the whole lot. I think what I'm going to do is I think for this project, no big brushes, all small brushes, because we're going to be looking for that thin, small stroke. So let's just have a quick see what I can. And I might start with a sort of middle-sizey one. I think we'll go with this one to start. And the first thing I'm going to do is with the brown, I'm going to start, I just want a little bit of white in my brown here. I'm just going to start sort of sketching it out. Just so that we've got the kind of like the basic shapes. I think this is probably. Now, you don't need to worry too much at this point. You're just kind of putting some paint down to get an idea of where it's going to go. Yeah. Kind of turn it round. Now, remember perspective. So you're going to have this big swirl. And we have to make this go round the whole shade, so kind of take that into account. And here. So let's swirl here. And swirl here. I'm going to slightly move my little church and things to this side. There's has to be a bit of artistic license. If not, all the detail is going to be at this side. So let's just kind of imagine there's a sort of churchy thing going on here. I feel a bit like Bob Ross today. You're just kind of roughly sort of kind of sketching out where you think the buildings are going to be. It's just to kind of start. You have to start somewhere, and so somewhere is better than, yeah. I think we'll start kind of doing, at this stage here, we'll start working. Oh, somebody's up on the high road with their horn peeping.
It's a funny horn, isn't it?
Making me laugh. Yeah. Right.
The shows are in town.
Maybe.
It's the clown
It's
truck.
the clown truck. So up here, I'm going to start thinking about where my stars are. So I'm going to bring one down here. And I'm now just completely doing artistic license. You can see that. But
I think that's the only way you can do it.
I think that's the only way you can do it on a lampshade. Plus, I don't want an exact replica. So that way we're getting back here to this. So I'll do my moon, I think, here. But at this stage, I still have to kind of like carry, I'm going to have to do artistic license so that I can make these hills work. And we'll just kind of make that up as we go along. So I think this here is where we're going to kind of start. Okay, so I'm going to start with the background first, which is the sky. So let's kind of, I'm not going to watch you do all of this. I think probably what I'll do is, to make it a little bit less dull, is I'll stick to these two panels here. And I'm going to change my brush to something a little bit different here. So I want all the sort of blues in this. Right, okay. I don't think like precision like this is this kind of painting. I think it's got to be quite free and quite, so let's just start with our strokes and we'll put other colours in the middle in a minute. I think this is the only way we're going to get in. I'll come in with a smaller brush in a minute. So I'm going to go on, I'm going to do this panel here with the two blue, and what I'll do is I'll kind of intersperse it with this feeder blue here. And maybe some black after this. See if I can kind of make that work. Okay. So I'm still working on these two panels, and what have you missed? I've filled these two shapes in, which are the clouds, and I've put the sort of tonal colours, the beginning, on these hills. If you imagine this shape here is the shape here. Yeah. So this is what I'm doing here. These hills are a little bit of artistic license, but I'm kind of basing them on here. So that's what that's the kind of pick out part. I can see my strokes are two. These should have been the next sort of size strokes. My strokes need to be slightly longer and have direction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up a little bit of black and a little bit of the feeder blue. So it's not quite black, it's just a very, very, very dark blue. You could use Oxford Navy for this. So let's start to kind of pull some direction because we want our strokes to kind of like run. I still think it's looking a wee bit precise. So maybe I should alter it with a thicker stroke as well. Yeah. It's much darker up the top, so let's just kind of bring some of this darkness down here. So I'm going to kind of come back in and do some of this here round some of my shapes in longer sort of, I think the more you work at it and the more you put into it, the more strokes. I have a bright acrylic blue that I might kind of go to near the end, but I think you have to just keep, I think the trick is with this is just to keep the strokes moving. So I'm going to be doing this sort of look. Come back in with some of this. I don't mind texture on my lampshade. I'm going to be doing this anywhere where there's a background, this sort of look here. For where my clouds are, I'm going to start to bring in some white, sort of, so because it's to kind of like represent the movement. So let's kind of start with the long ones this time. I learned my lesson on the outside. And I think probably by the end of this, I'll be making this up as I go along. But I think that's okay because we're not. What are you laughing at, Martin? My strategy.
Yeah.
Well,
nothing unusual there.
no, I know. I always go my own way, but the thing is,
I think it's the only way you can go.
I think so. And the thing is, there is only one Van Gogh.
You're not trying to copy it, are you?
No, I'm not.
It's your interpretation
it's just
of
an
it.
interpretation.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I don't want to kind of like, I mean, I'll never do it justice. So I just have to do my own sort of jam. So I think that's okay. But I think I already can see I've over put too much white on it, but we can come back in with a different colour, a different mid-coloured blue. Let's just kind of like do some, he has it kind of twirling around there. My strokes were getting a wee bit too sweepy there. I just want to kind of shorten them down. So I'm going to do this part now, and I think probably what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to keep working really on the background, and then I'm going to start maybe next time we come back adding some yellow onto these panels here. So I'm still working on these two panels. What have you missed? You've missed me darkening up the top of the hills and bringing the hills right down to the bottom. This is going to have trim on it down here. So we don't really need to worry too much about this edge, but we will need to worry about this edge up here. Whether I do it a different colour, I don't know as yet. So I'm going to start to put some of the yellows on now. So I'm going to kind of start with this sort of, this one, and because this is like the light. And again, I'm using those kind of little strokes. I think it's just a matter of kind of like, I know everything's interpreted differently, but I think it's just a matter of putting some little kind of, I've got a different yellow here that it's more of a bright yellow, and this yellow is an acrylic yellow that I'm adding on top of this, just to kind of highlight this off. I'm making sure that I get plenty of texture in it as well. Something like that. This star now, we're kind of going to go in. I didn't clean my brush, so there's a little bit of yellow still on it. Just round like this. And you're going to have to work quite, I mean, I'm doing this on camera, but when I get off camera, I'm going to obviously work on it a little bit more. And, you know, sort of in here, and maybe some of the brighter yellow. I think it's a little bit kind of too contrived. It's a little bit circular. So, and Vincent's for a little bit more kind of like less kind of contrived. So let's kind of do something like this. Throws it off a little bit. Yeah. Right, you can see what I'm doing with the yellow. I might put another sort of star up here because I can. I'm just going to start doing something like this and then going in with the white. I'm going to move on to the next section now and start kind of like putting some of the other colours. I'm going to do start doing kind of maybe some trees. Yeah, I'm starting to just go a little bit crazy now. There's some yellow kind of here. That's a bit bright. Maybe some coming through here like this. Yeah. Sorry, man, I'm darting about.
Sorry.
I will have to
Makes
come
it
back.
interesting.
I'm going to come back here and put some of the blue back up in through here.
We don't do static camera angles in this show.
No.
We jump around all over the place.
All over the place. Yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking that maybe just some little sort of dabs here and there, going in the direction of your strokes. The yellow, just something like that. Not too happy with this. Bring it with some white on the top edge. Right, okay, so I'll fiddle about more with that off camera. So now we're going to be working on sort of this part here, and there's more hills, and I might put another star up in here. So I'll start again with my sort of just trying to get where I'm at. I mean, I want this piece of sky to come down here, so let's start with it. And how I did that in the first place was I just kind of lightened up my brush and just put the first sort of colours on it. Something like that. I think what we can do is we can fill in this shape here because we know it's black. But is a dark green also involved? But let's just get the shape in first. I have to swap to maybe a smaller brush here. I could bring that down. So I'm filling all the big shapes, and then I'll start to do a little bit more of the little brushy strokes because I'm wanting to try and do the lamp base in the same sort of style, so it's all kind of one and it all goes together like seamlessly. Whether I'll be able to pull that off, who knows. I'm just gonna put that out there. You can tell me at the end whether you think I've managed it. This is more kind of like that and the original, although I think we've kind of way past that now. Right, okay, that's shaping, and let's just kind of block off the tops of these.
Excuse me.
Like that, and like that, and using the big brush to block it off with some blue. I'm only doing panel by panel because I think it's a bit easier. So blue, and because we're going to put all our texture on top of this. So something like this. So I will get on and start to do this panel, and we'll come back in a minute and I'll show you where we're at. It's just going to need a bit of tidying up. Okay. So it doesn't get too boring for you. You get all the swirls. So we've done that, and I showed you how I was going to be doing the stars. This is the sky. With the tree, I just added more green shades and I just swept them up so that my strokes were all going the same way. And these two hills, like Vincent's hills, I've just put the lines going specific kind of ways, that kind of thing. Yeah, I'm on this part here now, which is the sort of town. You can see it maybe a little bit clearer on here. But I'm obviously having to use quite a bit of artistic license because mine's is quite bigger form. So I'm just kind of making up buildings. And now what I'm doing is I'm just kind of like picking parts to highlight. Just, like as in, that like the light is hitting them, or they're white buildings to begin with. I don't know. So I'm just kind of doing that, and, like roofs and stuff to highlight them off. How am I doing this? I always think the best way is kind of, if you start with a sort of kind of like a dark edge, but the paint is still wet like this, and then you kind of just kind of move in on the black and move it out into it so that it's, the highlight is there, the darkness is there, and then you can kind of like start to add your sort of colour. So if this was going to be the end of the side of the building, and maybe a little bit of this yellowy brown here. I have added some brown tones to the actual shade, which I'll show you in a minute. Just more of those little sort of lines, and then just kind of sweep that across there. And you need to maybe, I'm just kind of making this up because it's complete artistic license at this point. I'm kind of going by this sort of village, but I think keeping on adding some of the blues as well, because you can see he's got some blue. Quite a lot of his buildings here are sort of blue, so I'm putting the blue tones into the buildings as well, so that there's blue tones. And I have to kind of, work with it and play around with my paint until I get it just the way I'm looking for it. It's a sort of kind of dark, quite a lot of dark, because obviously it's just before daybreak and there's no light, so but it's just about mingling it all together, I think, so that when you stand back, it's the suggestion of Starry Night, I think we're kind of heading for. Just got to show you those brown tones that I put in. I put a sort of lighter brown here, and I've put more of a brown here, but I've only put a few just strokes here and there just to make it work. So this is it so far. So these are the first two panels, and that's these two panels. And we are working on getting the town into this panel here, and then we've got these two panels left, which has the moon in it and some more hills. But we're getting through it. It's just a matter of kind of taking your time, and I don't really think you need to have massive painting skills. I mean, obviously Vincent Van Gogh did, but I mean, for what I'm doing, I think you can do it with pretty limited sort of, limited skills, I would imagine. It's not that kind of tricky.
You can have a go.
You can have a go. You're right, man. You can have a go.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes the brain makes up its own mind. So because it's such a famous piece of art, that when you see the general colours and you look at this like this, you go, oh, that reminds me of Starry Night. That is what that is. So you don't have to be perfect. And I think these projects are just supposed to be a little bit fun. And I'm actually really enjoying this, just sitting here working away on it. And I think that's what I keep saying it is all about. And I'm finding this quite therapeutic. I quite like kind of just sitting doing this. So I'm going to do this, get these two panels here done, just in the same way that I'm showing you here, putting my tone and shade on, do my swirly twirlies around my stars, get the stars on, and then we'll get to the last two panels. Okay, so I'm going to do the moon now. So I'm just doing the same sort of strokes, all kind of going in the same direction. And then something like this was a little bit more scruffy looking. He's a scruffy moon. There we go. I'm going to let that dry before I go over the top of it, but it's going to need some black and some sort of lighter shades, bringing back out more of this. And then obviously it's going to, I've run out of white, it's going to need some more white kind of radiating from the edges. Kind of like this. So where am I at on this? I've obviously got this mint finish. Strokes are getting a wee bit big. Down a bit. So I've got this mint finish. I've got the stars to do. And I mean, stars are just pretty simple. They're kind of like some shades of sort of yellow in the centre. Like that. And then sort of this around the edges. A bit of this brighter stuff here. So you can see how you can quickly build it up and get it to nothing to what Van Gogh would have done, but enough that it's recognisable when people look at it. And I think that's what you're trying to achieve here. None of us are trying to be master artists, just enough that we can get it to the point where it looks like what it is. So where else have I done? I've finished these hills here. I've got the trees to do. Now the trees are, I think, are going to be quite complicated because this is the trees here. So it's just kind of like arcs. So I need to try and work out how to kind of put those in. Just stick that back up there. So I've got the trees to do, which is this area here. I'm kind of all right with this. I've got obviously these stars to do. I'm pretty happy with how my sort of village looks, even though it's completely off-piste and not like the original, because I've had to make mine a bit bigger for my shade. Here's all done, and here's done. Just make sure you just remember to put just a tiny little bit of yellow in it here and there. Here's done. I'm wondering whether maybe some yellow here. I've got this one here to fix. These fields are done, and we're back to the moon. So I'll get on, finish the moon. I think I might want to put some more strokes in this field here and maybe some highlights on here. And then we'll put the standard lamp base up, and on the base we'll do the hills, and then up the pole we'll do this sort of the clouds, and we'll do interspersed with some stars, and we'll make it all work. And then once we've done all that, we'll get to trimming and it'll be done. Yeah. Okay.
5 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not a quick project, but it's not a days on end project. You can always tell by what I'm wearing. So I'm still wearing the same clothes, so we're still in the same day, which is quite good. Okay, right, I'll get on and do this. Okay, so onto the base, and I'm just using the same sort of brown to kind of map out some of the hills. I think we'll have that going that way. And I'll do pretty much kind of twirly. I think I'll do maybe just some more hills. I don't want the same as the top, so really I'm just going to go with some hills here, I think. How did I do the hills? Let's just put a sort of base coat on. We'll come back and do all our little twirly strokes. So let's just start with something. Kind of put some of this on it. I just think it's good to get the shape down first. Now, once I've got the shape on, I'm going to be doing the same little strokes on this part here, and then when we get up to here, I'm going to be doing the sort of swirly clouds. But I mean, I'm just gonna paint these in. So I'll go away and I'll do my hills. So I'm just kind of like, I'm just kind of like really trying to put the blues down before I put all the different little kind of strokes on top of it. I wanted some darker edges near there, and I wanted a dark sort of hill there. And just kind of make it work all the way around, just so that it kind of works when you put the shade on it. So go around to this one here, and we'll probably make this one a little bit lighter, and we can come back and put dark on top of it. Some of this blue. So once I've done, I'll just finish this one here off, and then, because we'll kind of fix it all in a minute, I'm just going to put one here as well, because I want it all to kind of join up really. There, I've got some hills on here. Am I happy with that? Once I've done that, I'm going to be getting on with, now I think as I got through the lampshade, I learned my sort of kind of how I like to do it. So I think what you need to do first for your is kind of go in with a sort of bigger brush first and start with your sort of how you want it to run. Now I'm going to be wanting this to run up here, so I need to make my strokes that they kind of work with it, if you know what I mean. It's a bit that hasn't been painted. It's a good job it's up this way. Oh, there's a whole place been scratched, I think. Wow, I'll have to make sure that gets all covered up. Let's do that straight away. There we
Fixed.
go. So I'm running. So I've got my kind of bigger brush doing this first. Let's see if we can try and make this run this way. But obviously I want it to start running in where the hills are, because that's the kind of movement. So we've got this kind of brush stroke going on. Swap your brush and go in with a different colour. And then, because this one's a thinner brush, and just start putting and really this is it. You just have to keep building it up, because once I've done this, I'll probably come in with a darker colour and then the browns and then maybe some yellow, and you're going to work this up here. Now, because I want this to look like this one here is going to have, this swirl here is going to have a lot more white in it, because it's going to be representing this sort of clouds. So you can kind of do more of that on this one, because the clouds kind of like swirl on their own, you know, they're kind of wanting it to come something like this. And then it's just a matter of putting all your colours in between it again. Around the shade. Cover that up. A bit black. So then I'm going to bring in some dark. So I'm going to get up to about here with the swirls, because I mean, once you've seen it once, you really, I'm not showing you anything different. It's just time. And that is why I'm just kind of dotting about in this project, because it's really just the time it's going to take you to do it. If you feel your brush isn't running nice, add water to your chalk paint. And this project has all been painted with Annie Sloan chalk paint and a little bit of acrylic paint, just cheap acrylic paint. And I've got this blue and that yellow are my acrylics. But I'm only really using those near the end. Okay, it's just a matter of going over it and repeatedly doing the strokes to give it the texture of the hills. So the hills I've done the moon, I've done the swirly cloud coming up here, and I've got this, the most of this side done with 2 stars. And so I'm just kind of like turning the lamp as I go and doing the parts as I go. So I'm working on this sort of part here now. So I'm going to start by kind of clarifying this here, include my bust, I think, with some more white really, or kind of off-white maybe. And that's me just putting my kind of details into that, just so that that part's kind of like the flourish comes down here onto here. The blue part here, it's just the same as the lampshade. We're just putting all the little strokes onto it that give it the colour. I might add some lighter tones in here as well. And then when it's time to turn it again, I could do this star because it's up the top. So you've seen me do these now a few times, but I'm really kind of like skipping past quite a lot of it because it's already stuff you've seen me do, and I don't want this to be really, really repetitive. But I want it to be that this sort of sky part comes down and round, and the next bit of sky comes down around here, and then I'm just going to do a few stars, kind of medium sized and then smaller, and then kind of stop, so there's just an area of blue at the top, so that it all kind of flows. I might kind of brighten up the blue at the top to come down to meet this, but that's the sort of kind of plan, and you're not really missing anything. You're just seeing me do the same thing over and over and over again, which is do my little strokes and then change my colour on my little strokes until I've got it all the way I want it, and that's all I'm doing. So I'm going to get on until I get to the top part, and then we'll bring the blue down, and then we'll put the trim on the lampshade. Okay, so I've worked the design all the way up to here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop it down on the floor to here, because what I'd like to do now is from all here up to the top, I just want to put some of the brighter blue. So I'll use a smaller brush to distress on the stars at the top. So I'll just go round here first before I start kind of like putting kind of a blend on with a bigger brush. Because when I get up to the top, I'd like to make it a little bit darker. So you can see what I'm about here. I'm just going to get it up as far as here. Making sure that I don't want to cover maybe all of the blue. I just add a little bit darker paint here. And up here would probably be black. Just giving you an idea of what it's going to look like. Just kind of brush that down into here. I kind of just twirl it a bit. There we go. I just need a bit more blue in my palette. I'll get my small brush to get in at the stars there, but let's just make sure we've got the blue going round it before we go up into the black. So that is the lamp base. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to let this completely dry, and then I'm going to seal it now. When I get to sealing, I'm going to spray varnish my shade, and I'm going to use my normal top coat sealer to seal the wood. So there's a hair on my brush, just adding a different colour of blue into here. So this is just, artistic license now at this point. So I'm going to get on, I'm going to fill in down here beside these stars and fix both sides of this. Let it dry, spray seal my shade, let it dry outside because it's quite a nice day here in Scotland, and then probably come back and I'll quickly seal this on camera, on some of it. Okay, so I took my lampshade outside and I sprayed it with spray sealer just so you can wipe it with a cloth. It had 2 coats of spray sealer. When it was dry, I brought it inside. Now we're going to do the trimming. Because it's got the trim on here, you can't exactly paint it exactly straight. So you want something for the top that's got a wee bit stretchy. So I found this and I thought it doesn't look too horrific with it. So let's just do that. So you don't need a huge amount of glue to just get us started. But I want enough that when I pull it, it's going to go. Do you know, every time we film me putting trimming on, I'm always the wrong way round for the film.
I'll come around the other side.
No, it's fine.
That's right.
Fine. Once you've kind of got your first patch on, you can start pulling it. Do you see what I'm kind of doing? I'm kind of pulling it a bit over the top just so that it kind of covers it all up. You don't need a lot of glue for this, and you certainly don't want it running everywhere, so I'd be kind of careful. I'm going to just go away now and do that, and then we'll come back to doing the bottom trim. And the bottom trim's quite bougie, isn't it, Martin?
It is.
Well, that's what you want to try and avoid. You don't want big, nasty bits of glue. All right, I'll just do this side and then we'll get to the bottom. Okay, so I'm on the bottom trim now. I've applied the top trim, and this is a kind of feathery affair. I thought it would work quite nicely. I just have a work away. You have choices here on this trim. I'm just going to move that up a bit. You could either put it here or here, and you could, if you really wanted to be bougie, you could put another lot of trim here. But I'm just kind of, because it's a painting, I just want to keep it quite simple. Now, the best way that I've found to do these sorts of things is if you get your little stool. I've got this stool with the wheels on it. I just put the shades on it, and then I can twirl it around as I go. And then that way you're kind of like, it's a bit easier. That's what I'm trying to say, isn't it?
Well, it's at a good height, and you can, like I say, you can turn it around.
Yeah. And once I've done this, I'm just going to show you, because the top was sealed with, I was going to just seal the base with my normal sort of base coat, but I'm actually going to wax it to bring out some of the colours. There's no reason why I can't wax it this time of year. Well, you don't want that. If you can get rid of that glue, you have to wait till that dries a bit. If that does happen to you, just get a heat gun and heat it up and get rid of it, just scrape it off, but it's probably better cooling. I just don't want that messy. I'll come back to that in a minute. Around this edge, pulling it tight. There we go. I do have those things that put over your fingers, because I know that people always like to tell me I should get them, but I actually do have them. It's just that I'm not using them. How silly of me. I think I'll probably just do this. Just do. There we go. And I can go back and find that part that wasn't very nice here. So I'll go on, I'll fix this. Oh, the wax for the base. I've just got a wax brush here, and I've got clear Annie Sloan wax, and I'm just going to be waxing. So how you'd wax it is you put your first coat on, and then what happens is wipe it off with a dark cloth, not a white cloth, a dark one. And I'm just going to be waxing this whole bottom half. And the next time you see it, it'll be staged out and ready, finished. Okay? Okay, it's finished. So what did we do? I gave it the canvas coat of the blue first, and then I think if you're going to try and sort of emulate and copy like a famous piece of art, then home in on what will trick the brain so that people will recognise it. You don't have to be Van Gogh yourself, you just have to be able to do enough brush strokes that people can go, oh, I know what that painting is. So on this one, it's the sort of liney sort of strokes, keeping them moving, kind of thicker and thinner as we go around and kind of making it all move. Lots of different shades of blue, some white, some yellow, and that was that. Put some Juji trim on. Remember positive, negative spaces. I've left a little bit of blue here to give this part room to breathe with the shade. That's quite important, that little part there. You could do it right up to the top, but it might be a little bit much. So that's things to consider when you're thinking about your spacing. I have been Lyle from Made by Marley. If you've liked this video, give us a like and give us a thumbs up. You could share it. You can leave us a lovely comment. And if you haven't already, maybe you can consider subscribing. Martin, have you got anything to add?
Nope, nothing at all.
That's
as usual, amazing.
Yeah, says that every week. Okay, so Marty and I will see you next week, and have a lovely week next Sunday. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.